Alright, here are all the bits and pieces we have for our build. We've got our FlexRC Frog 2.5mm frame with some standoffs and nylon nuts. Of course, we've got our props. We've got our Diatone camera mount and the Diatone Camera. This is the 120-degree version. We've got the Eachine ET600, which is the VTX. So we've got a little light there. We've got our flight control board, which is a Flip32 from Ready to Fly quads with a buzzer. And we've got our Diatone PDB, our Lemon Satellite RX. We've got our LittleBee ESCs. I know that's overkill, but it's what I have, so we're going to run with it. And then these are the RCX 1105 version 2 4000 kV motors with some mounts for our props. Take a look at these motors. I don't know if that's going to come across in the video just how small these little guys are. Pretty soon we're going to be able to build quads that are 80mm and brushless. This is a 1306 motor for comparison. So tiny. But anyways, let's get started. Okay, and setting up to go, I noticed one thing real quick that we've got to disclose. These are the screws that came with the motors. So obviously we've got 2 for our props, and then we've got 4 for the motors. Well, if we look at this is the 2.5mm frame. That motor has, that screw has essentially one thread that pokes through, and that's not good for our motors. So I thought, well, what if I can make something to do with this? Well, we line that up. That's going to be too far. We don't have much clearing. That's going to go clear up there, and while that might not touch the windings, it's too close for comfort. So originally, foolishly, I'd bought 2 frames just because I wanted to see what the difference was. So now I'm building on the 3mm frame, and if we look at that, this is still relatively long because it's only a ½ mm thicker. So if we look at this, if I can line that up just right, that's pretty close to the windings again. So I dug out some screws from my DYS 1306 motor kit, or I think it's the 1306. It's from these guys. 1806. They come with a host of different screws, and again, while it's really close, I felt it was too close for my comfort. If I can get this lined up. There we go. That still felt fairly close to the windings. Not much. You know, it's probably only a ½ mm difference. Matter of fact, let's compare those 2 screws. Different type of screws. Hopefully you can see that. My big old thumbs aren't in the way. But the prop screws look to be in thread. Probably a full millimeter or ½ mm at the very least longer. But if we put these on the 3mm plate, sorry this is so fiddly. It's way it is when you're working with such small equipment here. That should keep us well below the windings. If we've got that lined up right. So that's what I'm going to do. I've got these screws that look to be 4mm screws. So you probably want, if you don't have a bunch of extra screws laying around from other kits, you probably want to get a screw kit on the way. You can buy those off of eBay, Banggood, GearBest, whatever. And as I'd mentioned in my frame review, you're also going to want to purchase some standoffs. I've got a host of different ones here, basically because I've got 3 kits. I've got the RotorX Atom kit, and then I've got 2 of these kits. But I also have one of these little kits that you can buy from eBay or something like that. And I think if you're going to buy one of these kits, or you need one of these kits, not only get the male-female connectors, but also get the female-female connectors, because you're going to want both. These kits generally run $8 or $9. So you're probably going to want to have one of those around, even if you're just doing some builds of your own. It's a just good surplus to have. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got our ESCs here and we've got to strip them or decase them. So I've got motors on one side and motors off on the other, just because we don't need to have those dry fittings on both sides. Well, that's too much. And these 20 amp LittleBees are well overkill. You could definitely run 10 amp ESCs on these. So I'm going to strip these all down. So we just get into this and I have a fail. What you missed was storage was full, so it stopped recording. But all I've done is remove the motor leads off of here. So then we'll come back and we'll tin these ourselves, because a lot of the solder kit did come off, or some of the solder did come off. We won't need a lot because of course these wires are really small, so we just hit it real quick, get in and out. Matter of fact, I don't know, maybe we don't need to. Oh, those two probably do. I should clean my... That's better. Okay, now we just want to do our dry fit to see how long our leads need to be. Let's say we'll make these two the front. So if we look at our motors, we can easily get that in there. Nice silicone wire, but we're gonna have to strip these back quite a bit actually. So let's do that. I'm going to use these so as not to cut any of my motor wires. That would be catastrophe. Just going real slow. And as fiddly as this is, it'll be a lot easier for you if you're not filming it. So you can see we've got a little bit more heat shrink underneath. I'm going to leave that in place because I suspect that is helping to hold those wires steady inside the motor. So I'm going to do that to all four of the motors now. So I've stripped most of the motor wire off. You can see here it's compared to my finger, just not very off. And this was flexible, so if I have to bend it up in order to make it work, that's fine. Of course, if you want an extremely tidy build, you can cut these shorter. My hesitancy is if you make any mistakes, you've got nothing to go back on, because there's no getting those wires back up in there. You'd have to solder on another wire in order to make that lead just a tiny bit longer. These silicone wires, they strip real easily because they're so small. You can actually, if your fingernails are sharp enough, I'm going to try it here. You can just do it with your fingernails. If you don't have fingernails, you can do it with your X-Acto. They strip off real easy. Need a little more off of that one. Hopefully you can see that. I know it's super tiny. I'm just pinching it between my fingernails. Don't even give it that much pressure. And strips right off. Nice and easy. So I'm going to do that around. Got all our motor wires stripped. Now we need to tin them up. Normally I like to twist stranded wires, but these are so small it is hard to tell if you're getting anything done or not. So I'm just going to tin them like they are. That one's got a straight look. Oop. If you're curious, this is blue tack made by Bostik. I'll get the package out here. It's like $9 or $10. Again, it's that inexpensive stuff. You can put it to use posters, stuff like that, made by Bostik. Get it from Amazon or maybe buy it directly from them. Bluetack.com. I didn't get mine there. I'm pretty sure I got mine from Amazon. Okay, so those are all tinned up. Motors are all set. I am going to put a bit of electrical tape on these arms to make sure we don't get any inadvertent shorts. Our ESCs will sit right on top of that. Don't have to worry about them shorting. And I am going to use, in this particular case, silicone tape. I'm going to try this stuff out. It only sticks to itself. So I can wrap that around. I don't have to worry about fitting heat shrink up over the top. Alright, let's go. Alright, we got this all set. I went ahead and mounted the motors. You just want to make sure that the bearings and the motor stem line up with those center holes. And generally, if you get the screws lined up, they will. So we need to have motor 1 and motor 4 spin clockwise. So like this. So this one rotates this way towards it, and this one rotates. And you do that, you can either do that in software, so you can line them all up straight, or you can do it now with crossing any two wires. So these will be straight, one of these will be cross. I just like to do it that way. So we need to get all these wires up off of here. This is going to be pretty tough to film, I suspect. Alright, I'm going to go with a needle nose here. You might not be able to see this very well, but I'll do my best to keep my hands out of the way. Nope, didn't get that one. There we did. There we go. There's one. Bend this out of the way. Let's get our blue tack out of there. We don't need that out of there anymore. Get a little pull test. Looks good. See, those wires are so small they bend right up. Tell you what, I'm going to use a little bit of my blue tack to keep this little guy still. He doesn't weigh enough. Alright, so you just do the same thing for the other two motors. Alright, we got our ESCs on here. Now we just need to cut our voltage and ground to the length that we want. I'm going to start up front. So this one's going to be a bit shorter. Do I want to route that around the outside? I don't think so. Let's go straight over the top. About there. Get ourselves a little bit of extra on this one to bend it. Now we strip it. Alright. Bump this up off, tin it. Something I should have done to begin with, but I got a little happy, was I should have tinned all these pads. I'll do that now. Would have been easier to tin all these pads before I had all this stuff on there because we're so cramped. So let's do that. Go ahead and pull over here. Battery. And 5 volts. Okay, so now we are ready to solder. Again, I'm going to use my little needle nose here because I'm not going to be able to get my fingers in there very well. Let's get the signal wire up out of there. I'm going to turn this a bit so you can see, possibly. All right. That's one. 3 more to go. There we go. We got all our speed controllers soldered down. Next thing we need to do is our battery lead. I have a battery lead JST because most 3S batteries come JST. Oh, what'd I do with that thing? Ah, here it is. So we're going to want to use those zip tie holes to secure this thing. So I need to shorten this down. Previously I'd used this on a Saiski board. And it's a little bit up, so I think I'm going to find something to put underneath as well. But let's do the cutting first. I think about there we'll do it. I've got a host of different batteries I plan to test. Show you just a couple of them here. These range in price from 20 bucks to 6 bucks. So this is a Admiral 3S 30C. Here's a really inexpensive one. The Florian 20C. I think these were like $5. And then the more expensive one, I think these were 22 or 24 bucks. It says 70C on there, so we'll see. There aren't a lot of 3S batteries in the 450 or 500 size, so I bought a few as I waited patiently for all my parts to come in. Oh, I got a little hanger on there. Alright, let's tin this up while we're at it. You can't see that. Let me move this up. See if I can twist these a little bit. I left them short intentionally. Okay. Now I need to find something. Boy, that's too long already. That's still too long. Yeah, I need to shorten these up more. But if I'd have started too short, I'd have been on the other side of things making a new JST. So re-tin. So now that'll give us a good chunk of that JST to zip tie to. Okay, I want to find something, piece of foam or something. So I found a bit of this kind of a gummy foam tape. I think it's actually anti-vibration tape. But it's kind of gooey, and that's what I was looking for. So I put 2 of these back to back, see if I can get these pieces off now. stick them. Is that center? Pretty close. Should be able to thread my zip tie still through there to secure it all down and solder it down. Looks like it's a bit. So that's all ready and set. I think that will stay down there nice and keep our battery lead out of the way. So as you can tell, I don't have any nuts or anything. So on the PDB here to keep it down, so I'm going to add a few of those for purposes of spacing so that I can put the Flip32 board, which is right here. And the USB port actually goes towards the back, which isn't terrible in this case. And I think I may keep it towards the back. And this is where we plug in our lemon. But I need to get this up off the... I need to at least put a couple of nuts on there. Alright, starting to come together. Now I need to make sure all of our grounds and signals are going to be free. Oftentimes you would put this board, you would rotate it so it would come out the side, but this thing's so small it doesn't matter which direction it's coming from, it's going to be kind of tight anyways. I almost forgot, we're going to need our 5 volts for our flight controller, so I need to solder that, and then I am going to use this lead for the VTX and camera, so I need to snip this off good and short, and I'm going to solder that to the 12 volt side. And then I also wanted to add a blue light, just one of these, so I'm going to solder that directly on top of the battery leads. So I'm going to cut these up and make some approximations, tin them up and solder them on. So I've got my leads on here. This will be going to our flight controller, and then I've got my FPV. I gave myself a little slack so I could work this underneath, because it will be plugging in somewhere along here. I'll have to figure out where that fits. And then this, of course, this long string is going to have to be chopped down, but we'll do that when we get to it. So we've got our Flip32 on here, and we've got everything soldered up. Now we just need to tin. You'll see that we only have 4 motor inputs, and that's the way this board is designed. It comes with this nice little sticker on the package. It tells us right here. If we line this up with this, we can see that motor 4 is at the top, and then 3, 2, and 1. So let's tin those up. This might be the hardest part, working around this camera and trying to get something to view here. I don't need to clean my tip. Now we don't actually need to tin all these, because some of these won't have any voltage, but we'll go ahead and do it just in case we need it later. Okay, so motor 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we know that that goes to the top, so that's a nice short run, so we won't need much space there. I think cutting it about there should work. And this is motor 3, so it comes around to here. I'm actually probably going to run it in here. When we unravel these, we'll get a little bit more distance too. This is motor 1, goes in here side. So start it long. Okay, time to unravel these, tin them up, strip them, tin them up, and then solder them on there. So we're all wired up here. Looks like I might have had my iron a little too hot, but these wires that are kind of plastic coated, they tend to burn back quite a bit when you heat them up, which it's an evil thing, but there's not much we can do about that. We can use a lower temperature soldering iron. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this with some hot glue, because this is the hardest part to do, really, is to solder in all these little bits. And the last thing I want is for them to come loose, especially come loose and then short something else out on my board, which would basically be a reworking of the whole thing. So I've got my steady hot glue gun here, and I'm just going to hit it with a bit of hot glue all over the place. Bam, done. Okay, so where we're at now is I have got a Lemon RX. It's naked. Where'd the case go? There it is. So this is how it comes in the case. It's just got one screw on the back. Then you take something sharp and you just kind of wedge it in here and you pull it apart. But that decreases its bulk quite a bit. You still have the connector here, but otherwise, you know, the bulk is quite a bit less. And that should fit nicely just right down in here, just using a bit of double-sided sticky tape or something. And then you can see from our stack here, if you look at the front posts, see if I can get that flat for the camera there, that's going to leave us a pretty good amount of space. Now, the VTX I'm using is a little bit bulky, but I do think it's going to work. It's going to get pretty tight now, so it's going to be really important to be patient and look at things a couple of times before we actually solder them down. So I'm going to work on shorting this lead and then getting the VTX. After much consideration and fiddling around with this, a couple of conclusions I've come to reach. This isn't going to fit as it is. I'm going to have to take the SMA connector off. And the wiring that it comes with, the pinout, as you can see here, it actually lists it from left to right. So I presume that I'm reading this, sorry, it was in my hand, from left to right. So, sorry, you won't be able to see this real well. So we've got, obviously, they did stick with the standards. We've got our plus, our minus. This is video. The next spot would be audio, and then our last two is this is actually positive, and then this is negative to our camera. And I did want to keep this because this has an internal regulator, so it'll make sure our camera gets 5 volts. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to get another pin in there, aren't I? So I happen to have a few of these laying around. They're essentially the same. I'm going to take the green lead out of there and put it next to the yellow lead, which will mean I then can have the audio, because if you can see from down here, the camera does have audio. So in this case, yellow is still video on the camera and white is the audio. So I want to wire that up just because it's there. Why not have it? And I did look at the camera and the angle. I'll show you this here real quick. So that's as far as I can go back with that connector for the 3.3 volt connector for the Lemon satellite. But that's pretty extreme. I would be flying, you know, geez, I don't know about you, but I think that's well beyond my skills. So I think that will work out just fine. And I did go ahead and I mounted the camera, and as you can see here, I mounted it forward of the holes. You can see on the slots there, or on the bottom, we have the camera mounting holes, and then we have these slots that are presumably for zip ties or other sorts of cameras that people might want to use. Well, I just used 2 mounting bolts and I just put them in the slot, which allowed me to move it forward. Now it does kind of mess up the ergonomics of things, because I do have these corners sticking out here. But I just thought, why not just go ahead and mount it there now? That way I have the flexibility of changing the camera angle. So if by chance, you know, this isn't enough and I need that little bit more, I do have that available without having to go through the disassembly. And this camera weighs nothing, so even if it goes tumbling end over end, it's not going to hurt it any. It's not going to go. So the next steps I'm going to have to do is, where'd it go? There we go. I need to pull the green wire out of here and put it into here, which that will be no big deal. And then I'm going to need to take the SMA connector off and then solder on my antenna, which is right here, a nice orange antenna. I'll come back and we'll look at doing the part where I take this SMA connector off. It's not going to be a very exciting video, but I haven't seen a lot of people doing that. Maybe there's more of that out there. I just haven't gone looking for it. Alright, we're going to take this thing off. Got a big heavy duty set of clamps here, and I've got a big fat tip on here. Let's just put some solder on here so that we can... Boy, I sure need some big soldering iron, don't I? Or some bigger solder so I can lay some down faster. Okay, so sorry, my wire might get in the way here a bit. Let me see if I can switch this around. We don't want to heat this up too much and burn the board. So what I'm going to do is lay it on here and press at the same time, so when those solder joints get warm enough, it should pretty much fall off. Come on. Done. Good. Not too terrible hot either. Great. Need to solder my antenna on. Should be easy peasy. Okay. I'm going to lay down some more solder on this. Hopefully I won't get my hands or face in the way. Just adding a little more here. And you can see it pulled all this off the PCB, but that's not a big deal because really what we're wanting to go is right up against the VTX in that same slot. Hopefully you can see this. Hopefully I can get some to lay down. It's a really tough spot. Well, what about this? There's no metal down there to stick it to. Let's tin this up a bit. Then let's split our blue tack in two so we can hold both pieces in place. Now I want to angle this up a bit, so I probably want my bigger blue tack on this side. Yeah, it looks like I'm going to need another piece of blue tack. So I want this to angle up. Hopefully you can still see in there. I'm not sure I can. Yeah, that should work. Looks good. Now we need to take care of the wiring harness first, I think is best, but let's do another dry fit. Top plate. I'll bring the antenna leads up through the top plate. Make those nice and proud with, you know, I'll do something like this and use some mini zip ties. Get those up out of there. Now the back is going to be up a little bit more. Yeah, that'll work. Then we can use the zip tie back here. Sorry, that entire thing was out of shot. So this is where we'll be at. It'll fit nice, and then I'll actually have a little gap and there'll be some nice airflow over the top, and I'll keep it off of the receiver and everything. All that's left to do is our little last bit of FPV gear wiring here. So this is going to come in here somewhere on like this. We got to make these long enough to reach and have a little bit of slack. I think this should do it. It's final. They're cut. Okay, I'm going to tin these up. Solder these points. So obviously, to go over this once again, we've got our green is our audio, yellow is our video, white is our negative, I believe, and blue is our positive. Let me check that. White is the positive and blue is the negative. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to do that here. Get these all tinned up and we'll see you in just a minute. Oh, we're so close now. We just need to button down the hatches, so to speak. I did put some hot glue around these connectors to make sure everything was okay there. So then we tip our camera up. These wires are going to have to bend at some point. Let's leave it right there. This is where it gets pretty fiddly. Again, VTX plugged in. Just need to finesse these wires a bit. I'll button down the hatches. We'll be all set to go. There she is. Fully assembled. Well, still got to do some props, but that's the build. So one of the more difficult builds I've ever taken on, of course, but what can we expect for 122 millimeters of pure joy, right? I'm hoping my antenna really helps me find this thing, because I'm sure to crash it, and that 3mm bottom plate will stand up to probably anything I can dish out. Alright, if you have any questions or comments, anything you want to contribute, leave those in the section down below. Give it a thumbs up if you like the video. You can get these online, and I will link the shops that you can buy these from. The 3mm plate is now available from not only Armaton, but also FlexRC, the originators. Alright, thanks for watching. Happy flying. You're still here? What do you want? Oh, I know what you want. You wanted to see what it looked like. Finished, right? Props. You probably thought I forgot about the strap. Well, I just ran it through the under bottom. It's got these little cutouts perfect between the legs. I could have used this strap in here, which would have been fine, but you're kind of right. I did forget to put the strap in first thing first, because I'm not getting it in there now. Unless you got a more flexible strap than I do, get that thing in there first. But I didn't put it in there first intentionally, because this is a really small build, and I didn't want to have to be fussing with the strap. So what else is it you're looking for? Oh, I bet you I know. I bet you it's the weight, right? The weight. Oh, that's glare. Okay. Let's do the weight. $116.57. 156.4. So well under the limits. And with these motors, on 3S, should be getting a maximum of 120 grams of thrust per motor. There are some 30-30 props out there that I have on the way. I'm going to see if those work, because these are 30-20 props. What else could you... Oh, I bet you I know why you're still here. You probably think it doesn't work. Yes, that's probably it. Alright. Is that good enough? Maybe you wanted to see that. And the beeper works too. No, this is great. I'm pretty excited. I did take it for a quick flight inside, but not too much, because I don't want to get yelled at. Pretty excited to tune this up and get some flying going on, and I'll post some footage as soon as I can. Alright, thanks for watching. I'm really going away now, and I'm taking this with me.